Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast that can be heard each week on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. We can also be heard on Spotify, a couple of other places as well. And if you want to find us, you'll be able to. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations, not only in Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And to that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Pat Achilles. Am I pronouncing the last name correctly?
Achilles, yes.
Achilles. Okay, I'm sorry. And you can wave for all your friends who are watching this. So that is Pat. And Pat has been illustrating for books, magazines, greeting cards, and websites for over 30 years. One of her most exciting achievements was having some of her cartoons published in New Yorker magazine. That certainly is something, Pat. But the question I always ask guests the first time I speak with them is, in terms of growing up, where did you grow up as a kid?
I grew up in Warminster, Pennsylvania, not far from where I live now.
Okay, so you stayed pretty much in that part of the country most of the time?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And when you were a kid growing up, did you always know you wanted to be an artist?
I think I did from a pretty early age, Blaine. Thanks, by the way, thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you again after so
a long time. So you grew up as a kid. When did you first know you wanted to be an artist?
I started making cards for my teachers, I think in 4th or 5th grade. My father liked to draw too, and actually he did cartoons and he wrote gags for cartoonists too. So my interest in it came from my father, I think, mostly.
So you mentioned you started as a young age. Do you still have that first card you ever did?
No.
Wouldn't that be cool?
It was Charlie Brown, it was a Peanuts takeoff, right?
Right. And we won't tell the estate, that you were copying their stuff,
No, right. Thank you.
Exactly. Mum's the word. But talk to me about, Pat, I've always wondered this about cartoonists, that it's kind of a two-part process, right? You have to, first of all, draw the cartoon, but then you have to come up with a caption, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which do you do first?
I don't know if everybody does it this way, but I generally come up with the words first. I'm a word person in addition to being a picture person. So, and I get that from, like, my dad introduced me to the New Yorker and cartoons probably when I was in high school. So the words generate the picture for me.
Because you mentioned New Yorker. It's funny, I still subscribe to it to this day. I mean, it's great. I can get it online, but I don't read the articles so much anymore, but I just love the cartoons, So when did you start reading them?
I think in high school. I think my dad got me into it in high school.
Okay.
He always wanted me to try for it too.
To do the New Yorker. Well, let's skip anything else we want to talk about, and let's talk about that process. So you've been an artist for a lot of years. When did you first start trying to get a cartoon in the New Yorker?
I sent some batches in when I was in my well, I don't want to say what age, but maybe 20 years ago. But that was before everything went computerized. And so I'm sure I mailed them in. And at that point, I think they probably went into a slush pile somewhere. I don't know if anybody even saw them. But when I started a few years ago was when, they would let you send it in by email. But even that, I was told, wouldn't be the best thing. The best thing would be to go in and introduce yourself to them.
Well, too cool. We'll talk about that process. So, and I think that's good for almost any job or career or whatever. So you wouldn't be mailing stuff in and they weren't getting accepted.
Right.
Then you decided to just walk in, or did you have an appointment?
Well, I met a friend who was a fellow cartoonist, and because I run a group here called the Bucks County Illustrator Society, and he lives in Yardley, which isn't too far from here. And he asked me about the illustrators group, and he said, well, I'm a cartoonist and I submit to the New Yorker. And so I asked him about it. And he said, well, I go up every once in a while, you can come with me. And that was my ticket up there, because I don't know New York myself. And I needed some encouragement to do this. So I did go with my friend, and he showed me the ropes of how to get in. And you don't have an appointment on a Tuesday morning. The cartoonists just show up on a Tuesday morning. Now this is pre-pandemic anyway.
Right.
So you go to the lobby, say that you're going to see the New Yorker, you have cartoons, and you go up in the elevator. And when you get out, There's an open office spaces, and there's a piece of loose leaf paper on a desk, which is the sign-in sheet. And there might be 4 or 5 cartoonists ahead of you. You just sign your name, and then you go and wait in this little cubicle off to the side where they corral all the cartoonists. And so everybody's there. You get to talk to other people, and all interesting people. And after a little while, Emma Allen, who is the current cartoon editor, comes around and calls your name, and you get to follow her into her office. And then she sits down with you, very nice, lovely person. And she looks through the batch of cartoons that you have brought with you, because you print out or, bring your originals. And she may hold a couple of them that she finds interesting. Of course, she's looked through, by this time, hundreds of thousands of cartoons, but she'll pull a few out, and she'll hold them for the editor's meeting, which is like, this is on a Tuesday morning. That editor's meeting, I think, is on a Friday. So, and she'll hand the rest back to you, and it's very pleasant chat. You talk about what you can and with her, but you don't have that much time because there's other people in line. And then you pack up your things. Some of the cartoonists go out for lunch together. I've never had the pleasure of doing that, but they do hang around, some of them, if they live in New York. But I would head back home. And then if they happen to buy one, you get an email from her on Friday saying, okay, we want this one.
So when did that first happen, when they bought one?
I was really fortunate. It happened about my second or third time going up, which I think was very unusual. But it was in 2018 was the first one I saw.
Wait, that must have been exciting, huh?
It was, I was over the moon, yes.
I mean, so the people who are listening or watching maybe don't realize it, but New York is just incredible for cartoons, and to have gotten accepted into New York is pretty exciting. But in your behind you, I don't see the check, the framed version of the check, that you got for the first check. Or did you cash it? Did you cash it?
I cashed it all right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So, wow, what an exciting story. So that was the first time you got accepted. How many cartoons have you gotten accepted since?
They've bought 10 of them. Now, some of them have been on the online, the daily cartoon, which are only published online. Some of them have been in the magazine. So,
by the way, I love the online. Well, I only get the online version too. And so I didn't realize that. So the daily ones don't get published in the print magazine. Is that it?
if it's the daily cartoon, yeah, which is there's a new one Monday to Friday. They are not published in the magazine, right? They're just online.
Now you mentioned the person you dealt with, and that was right around, who was the guy she replaced? Who I loved his videos.
Oh yes,
You know who I'm talking about.
Bob Mankoff.
Right, yeah, was the best. But I think you and I even exchange emails sometimes on his videos, and we talk about cartooning. And he's just such a neat guy,
Yeah, very funny guy.
Yeah, but so but they did videos, and they were just absolutely great. So is that something now you still continue doing, that you get a batch of cartoons and every so often you go up to New York?
Yes. Well, they haven't invited the cartoonists back yet. So my understanding is everybody's emailing them in, unless they haven't told me something. But I have emailed batches, and you don't get something bought, certainly every time. So I do it once in a while. Yes.
Okay, too cool. And what makes you you decide that you have a winning cartoon or one you want to submit to New Yorker? How do you make that determination?
Boy, it's just anything that you feel is funny to me, because I've asked Emma Allen, the art director, do you want things that deal with mostly New York City or anywhere? She says, we want anything and everything. And Blaine, the magazine has been published since 1925. So they have had so many cartoons on so many topics that I feel that they want, something new that hasn't been done. Or if they want a desert island cartoon, which they've done many times, they want a really new and fun twist on it.
Well, we should mention to anybody listening that I believe some of the cartoons on New York are available through Facebook, but also New York, I guess.com. Mm-hmm. And they want to encourage you to subscribe, which I did, but some you can see on your own, without having to pay for them.
Right.
And I'm just smiling as you're talking about it, because it's such a treat to read the cartoons in the New Yorker. Let me ask you this, in terms of getting feedback, do you ask other people for feedback on the work you do?
Yeah, I often do ask my family members, my husband, and if my kids are around, I ask them. because I think they do certainly like a younger outlook. I'm not young anymore, so I do ask my adult children too if they find it funny.
Now, are they honest with you?
Yeah. Yep. They've told me sometimes that that's wrong. You're using that word wrong. If it's some new term that I don't,
Because it's funny you say that, Pat, because I would sometimes ask my ex her opinion, and she had like no sense of humor, and she'd tell you that as well. So she would even crack a smile. I knew I had a winner. It was a great cartoon or a great joke or something.
right.
But you're lucky you get feedback. But some people say that's not the best feedback because again, they're prejudiced, or
Oh, right.
they
right.
might not be completely honest with you.
Right.
But talk a little bit about, then you mentioned cartoons, and we'll stick on that for a bit. Pat, if I can ask you, put you on the spot, can you show some of the cartoons you do have? A couple
Yes.
you can show?
Yep. I can
Okay.
share my screen.
And this is people are in for a treat, by the way. This just so I so appreciate you doing this.
Let's see. Is that this? I'm looking for it here.
Okay. But the technology, I think we'll be able to get this to work.
Yeah. Oh boy.
As we're doing this, I'll just point out, and Pat will talk about it in just a second, but her art room or studio there just looks so cool. I can just see these cartoons in the background. Are they all your cartoons? In your
Yes.
office there?
If you see them in the background, yes.
Okay, too cool.
You can't see it yet, I guess, or can you?
No, I can't see. I can see your face, and
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay, no, that's okay.
All right.
Okay, just people listening, we're speaking to a friend of mine, Pat Achilles, who's an artist, illustrator, and she's going to be showing us in just a second. We had them popped up before, some examples of her artwork. So I think
where did it go?
Should be able to get it. Okay. And again, Pat, I've known Pat for a whole bunch of years, since when I was in Bucks County. I'm still not sure how we first met, but it was just we met at a meeting. And I said, this woman is quite a talent, and you'll see. I think we'll be able to see her stuff. I think we're making progress. We had it. Just a second. I'll keep talking as we do.
Thanks, Blaine. Sorry about this.
No, that's okay. We had perfected this to perfection just beforehand, but I'll mention also about Pat, and we'll see them in just a second as well. Pat also does greeting cards, and they're quite impressive, the greeting cards she does. And here we are, we're making progress.
There we go.
That's your, we want to turn that down. That's your,
okay, shall I read? I can read the captions if they're not.
no, but right now all I see is your files. I see all your files, and we don't want to show that. We want to minimize that.
Oh.
Okay, and I think we'll be able to in a second. It's good that I see my name a couple of times. Pat's sent me a couple of things. Yeah, I see them. I can't believe it. Pat did cartoons for me. I don't know if you can see it, Pat. We have your old file up in this technology, but we'll work this out. And trying to think. I'll keep talking about Pat, and I'll talk about how I met her. And I met her when I was in Bucks County, and she was in Bucks County. And I was looking at her cartoons, and I said, this is outstanding. And I think we lost you again. We're back to Pat there. Okay, and I think I'm going to do something here in just a second. I'm going to see if I can pause the screen.
There. I think I'm going to get it.
Okay, I think we got it. Finally, screen sharing. There we go, finally. Thanks, Pat. Thanks for sticking with us. Okay, I'm really excited. And what you're now seeing is, and I'll have Pat talk about it, some examples of Pat's artwork. And certainly I remember this one, Pat. Talk a little bit about that one.
This was the first one I sold in
Oh, is it
2018.
really? Wow.
Sir, we're getting ready to land. I'm going to need you to slide that under your seat. The grand piano.
Okay. I mean, he tried to carry the piano with him, but what a great joke. And I love everybody else's reading. And what I love, Pat, on this one, I love the look of the guy next to him.
Yeah.
Thanks. That is too cool. How long does it take you to do a cartoon?
Well, when you first send it in, when you first send it into the cartoon editor, you do a rough sketch. So the
Right.
rough sketch may take 10 or 15 minutes just to get the right elements and the caption on there.
Right.
But then for this first one, I wanted to impress them. So I think I probably took more time on it. So probably 2 or 3 hours. I wanted to research what the inside of a plane looked like and what the piano looked like and all. So that one took me more. Some of them are very spare, and don't take that much time.
After you do a cartoon, do you ever change it, or do you ever change the caption?
Yes. Yeah. It has to work with the look of the cartoon. So I edit the captions sometimes.
Now, do you ever reuse some of the stuff you've done, or do you ever say, like, not this cartoon, but do you ever come up with a cartoon you did 20 years ago and said, boy, I could still use that, or use it with a different caption?
Yeah, if we go through these, you'll see a few. I actually have used some of my dad's gags too, because he was a pretty good cartoonist, but he had a day job. And so he would write them on the backs of computer punch cards and stuff. And he had a whole filing cabinet of a whole shoebox full of these punch cards with his gag ideas on them. So I'd really like to get one of his in the magazine.
Please, yeah, let's see a bunch of them. Thank you. Now we're on a roll.
Okay.
I love it. Okay, great.
One, we need to know how you did the trick because those million people are still missing.
Oh
Now,
my goodness.
what's interesting is I sent this one in and they said, you know what? We're going to take the caption off and use it for the caption contest,
Oh, that's exciting.
which is at the back of the magazine, and readers can send in their captions for it. So what they picked, this was my original caption, but
Right.
what they picked was, when was the last time you saw either half of her? Which I thought was a really good one. And I got an email from the gentleman that sent that caption, and he wanted me to send him, a print of the cartoon with his caption on it and sign it. So I printed one off on my computer and sent it to him.
By the way, give a shout out to somebody you mentioned before, if the person's still around. You were talking before about your trips into New York, to the New Yorker with a fellow cartoonist. Is that person still around?
Oh yeah, Paul Kleba.
Okay, yeah, give him a shout. And so he's a cartoonist as well?
He's a cartoonist and a very good gag writer.
And from
Yardley.
Now, does this ever happen, Pat, that somebody will come up to you, or do you ever do a collaboration effort where you have the cartoon and they'll have the gag?
Yes, that's happened. And with certain friends, and Paul, who's a great gag writer, has given me some too. So we have collaborated before. Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm loving. Keep going on. You're on a roll, kid.
Okay. This one was, I think 2 years ago, they printed, if elected, I promise to take down all my campaign signs.
Yeah, it's a great, Pat. I'm not doing it just because you're on the air with me, but I'm really I'm laughing out loud on these. These are so cool. And I think we need this tomorrow, right?
Yeah, right. Right.
Okay.
And then mom's currently in a meeting. Will she know what this is in reference to? This one, of course, they bought during all the lockdowns. So that was a popular one. And actually, that's all these cartoons that the New Yorker has bought are on the Condé Nast store website, because Condé Nast is the parent company of the New Yorker. And people can buy, any cartoon they want on there to be put on a mug or a print of it, or I don't know what else. Other items. So this one has been leased several times by different companies.
Now, when that happens, are you involved? Do you get a cut of that?
I get a cut of that. Yes, they're very good about that.
Okay, very cool.
And actually, 2 of my cartoons are going to be in the 2023 New Yorker desk calendar.
Wow.
The rip-off calendar. Yeah.
That's pretty exciting. So 2 out of what? They have one for every day?
The desk calendar has one for every. Yeah, it's a 365-day rip-off calendar. Yeah.
So to get 2 out of them, that's pretty exciting. Good stuff.
It is.
By the way, aside from New Yorker, and we're talking about New Yorker cartoons, which I'm just loving, are your cartoons elsewhere?
Well, not in. Let me think. I mean, I've had some in a few publications, but I do. I shot for the top of the field first, Worker, and got there. So I don't have any in any other major magazines, but I do cartooning for a lot of different companies. So they're on websites and in other, like, I guess, internal publications and things.
So New Yorker does cartoons. 100 years ago, Playboy did cartoons, but I don't know any other publications that have lots of cartoons.
There aren't many.
Yeah. So let's keep hoping New Yorker still stays in there and does well, but
I know.
just for your cartoons. Okay, this one.
This year, instead of dieting, my resolution is to make everyone I'm seen with fatter.
What an idea, Pat. This is great though. I love it. By the way, talk about your cartoons. If people want to see them, are they available on a website or any place they can see them?
I think I have a lot of them on my blog, which is on my website. I have a blog called Penciled In, and I put my cartoons up there every once in a while. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And mention if anybody wants to get that blog or find out more about you, what's that website?
My website is achillesportfolio.com. And on there, there's a tab for my blog called Penciled In.
Okay. You spell that again, how, please?
The Achilles Portfolio?
Yeah.
Yeah. ACHILLESPORTFOLIO.
One word, right?
Portfolio.com. Just like the Greek god, Achilles, just like the Greek god.
And what's the idea of the blog? When did you start writing that?
Oh gosh, probably 8 or 10 years ago. I mostly put on there process, like if I'm working on a job, I'll put sketches and then comps and then finished artwork to show. It's just sort of a record of my illustrations and cartoons and the process that I use to get through them. So any young artist might find it interesting to see, what I go through. I write a little bit about each job.
And talk also about, I think, how I first met you. I don't know how you bumped into you, but it was through you were in this illustrators group, and it's still out there?
The Bucks County Illustrators Society is, but I met you at the Women's Business Forum in Doylestown, which was a wonderful group started by Shannon Walsh. And it was a great business group for women who needed some help, like me, in their business skills. And I learned a lot through the years of being a member of the Women's Business Forum. And you came and spoke, and I remember you showing us the left-handed pencil. And that was an enlightenment for me, because I'm right-handed, and I didn't realize that left-handed people do see things a little different than we do.
Oh, I'm impressed you remember. Next cartoon is very appropriate. Is we'll go to the next one.
Those weren't magic. Those were GMO.
Now we know. How do you come up with these ideas?
I don't know. A lot of them, well, you might be reading something and your mind twists what you're reading a little bit or exaggerates it. This one I may have shown you this one a long time ago. Finally, someone I don't have to empower. Coming home from work and seeing her cat there.
Do you have a cat?
I don't.
Do you have a dog?
No, my daughter and her son-in-law do, and they bring him over a lot. So we dog sit a lot.
Okay, great.
Even my memory foam is failing.
So true. Okay. But what's so great about these pets? They're so contemporary. You may have done them 20 years ago or whenever you did them, but they're still current. Do you date? You don't date them on the cartoon?
No, I don't. I've never kept track of that. I know which ones are more current than not. Try the pinstripe again, Eve says. That's one of my dad's gags. I drew that really? For him. Yeah. Oh yeah.
But he came up with the gag and you came up with the illustration?
Exactly. Same with this one. The devil's saying, I don't like it. He's adjusting too well. Roasting marshmallows there.
I so appreciate this, Pat. I don't do this when I read the weekly cartoons from New Yorker, but I smile. They just make me laugh.
Well, I have to remind you too, I started doing like a Monday cartoon for about 4 years ago. And you were the one that encouraged me to do that. And every Monday I'd do a cartoon.
Well, I remember, and I'd ask you, and then you even did me a favor years ago. I was able to use a couple in my blog,
Yes.
and you were so cute. You put a Blaine's World caption, or I guess you saw another cartoon you had done and just recaptioned it.
Yeah, and, right.
Has New Yorker ever done that? Have you done any of the other caption contests in New Yorker?
No, I think it was just that one that they used.
Okay, that's funny.
That's one. Now there's still time to turn this into a win-win.
Right. I love it. So contemporary for Thanksgiving. Do you try to do cartoons around seasons?
Yes. I mean, if I'm going to submit them to the New Yorker, you have to send them in, a month or two ahead of time. But this one, because I sent this out, no, I didn't send it out, but I have a client who runs he's a car salesman trainer. And so he likes to send out a Thanksgiving card to
Right.
his clients every year. And they just have to relate somehow to business or some buzzword in business. It doesn't have to be about cars. So he used this for his Thanksgiving card one year.
And Pat, since we're on that topic, talk a little bit about how else I know you work, and we'll give a shout out to a mutual friend of mine, but Ed Colehep and his family are
Yes.
financial folks in financial advising folks in Doylestown. And how do you get to know Ed, or how do you meet him?
That was sort of 6 degrees of separation from the Women's Business Forum again. At the Women's Business Forum, I met Laura Powers, who was a graphic designer, and she did designs for Ed Colehep at that time. Or no, she had an office in the same building as him. She may have done some work for him too.
Right.
And so when she saw my cartoons, I think she knew Ed and his family had a sense of humor. So she hooked us up, and I've been doing birthday and New Year's cards for Colehep Investment Advisors for probably 15 years now.
And I should mention, again, as a compliment to you, it's one of the things I look forward to. First of all, in general, Pat, I believe in this, and I tell people, if you want to reach somebody, one of the best ways to reach somebody is through snail mail, regular old-fashioned mail,
Yeah.
because you mentioned online. I'm online too much. We see millions of stuff online, but I almost, probably it's good for your business, hopefully, that people don't realize you want to reach somebody, get their attention, send them a piece of mail.
You're right.
And I use you as an example. For example, how many pieces of mail do you get on any given day?
Yeah, probably 4 or 5 pieces.
If that, and now with bill paying, it's even less so, online.
Right.
But I have to tell you, Pat, it's not that I look forward to my birthday or New Year's or whatever, but I get that card from Ed, and I get twice a year. My wife gets them twice a year, and it always puts a smile on my face. It's just to get, and I always think of you. That's how, by the way, I think I contacted you. I said, geez, I've never had Pat on a show. I just got a card. I sent you an email. Hey, let's get on a show.
Yeah.
But how many companies do you do that for?
Over the years, I've had at least 6 or 7 or 8 companies that I do, and I often do sort of caricatures of the staff for them.
It doesn't have to be Colehep. Do you have one that you can show? Do you have one handy? You can even hold it up.
Yeah, if I can hold it up, I think I do have one here.
Yeah, it is so cool.
Let's see if I can. It's the family playing pool. This
But
was
maybe let's go out of screen sharing if you can. Just minimize screen sharing.
Minimize screen sharing
if you can. But this stuff is so good, and I'm sharing an idea, Pat, with people that if you want to stand out, contact Pat and she'll help you. Yeah, there you go. Thanks. So just hold it up.
Okay.
And so this, I see this family playing pool, and this
Right.
was what card was this?
This is for a birthday card. And so there's Ed Jr., Mary Beth, and Joanne and Todd. And inside it says, hoping you run the table, chalk up another happy birthday wish from all of us.
Okay.
And it has their logo and things inside.
And I just love it because it ties into, I guess, so you have the illustration and then you tie in the theme, the wording. Do you come up with that, or it come up with a collaborative thing?
It's a collaborative thing. I've often done it for them, but I often give them a few suggestions, and sometimes they come up with it themselves.
Yeah. Is that fun?
Yes. It's great because I don't always know their business, what their business is, the buzzwords and things in their business. So it helps to have them suggest things.
What's the response you get on that?
Like I said, they've been doing it for 15 years. So I know they get good responses. The client that used the, let's turn this into a win-win, the turkey one, he has told me that, that's Jim Shute of Proactive Performance. He's told me that when he's visited clients' offices, they often have it tacked up on the bulletin board because nobody does that. Like you said, nobody sends them a card, a funny card, and a card sort of related somehow to their business.
And they are so good, and the characters are so good. Do you have in terms of the stuff you do you have a preference as to the kind of stuff? Do you like doing caricatures, or?
Women are hard to do caricatures of. men are easier and they're less sensitive about it, I guess. But I like to do the kind of black and white cartoons that I do for the New Yorker. I think that's punchy and it's, it's fun and fast. And I like that kind of stuff.
And where do you get the ideas even for the characters you draw for the New Yorker?
Just come out of my hand. I don't know.
Do some reappear, the characters?
Yes. And some look like my brother, some look like people in my family. I mean, I have right here, I have anthologies of New Yorker cartoons, that anthologies that are, oh, they don't have much on the cover here. I have them right here, the New York, oh, I guess that might be
Right,
backwards.
yeah, I see it. Great.
New Yorker album of drawings. And I just, there were certain, cartoonists that I loved. And so I think I'm probably influenced by them.
Did your dad wind up as an illustration in some of your cartoons?
Did
you ever draw a caricature of your dad that wound up in a cartoon?
Oh, well, the guy roasting marshmallows looks a lot like my dad. And that's the gag that he drew, the one where the devil's saying, I think he's getting too used to it here or something like that. He's adjusting too well.
Because a mystery writer once told me this, that he loved writing mysteries because if he was annoyed with somebody, he could kill them off. So I don't know, is that similar? Does a cartoonist do that as well?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Now that I think of it, I think I probably plug some of my kids end up in there and people that I know.
But what's nice about your stuff, Pat, it doesn't, I guess maybe I haven't seen all of it, but doesn't seem to be nasty in terms of the humor you have. It's kind of sweet.
I just try to be funny.
Yeah. Talk about one other thing too, Pat, you do, and we did it in the introduction, but aside from the cartooning stuff, which I just love, you also do some illustration work for books and other stuff. Talk a little bit about that work.
Well, I always love children's books and illustrations. So I worked, when I graduated from Moore College of Art, where I studied illustration, I worked for Westminster Press, which was an arm of the Presbyterian Publishing House, but they did a lot of Sunday school books and things. So I did some illustration for them and I was lucky enough to do a children's book for them. And then that company moved to Kentucky. And so, and at that time I was actually married and starting a family too. So I started to freelance, and Doylestown luckily is an area of a lot of creative people. Right. So I met up with various authors, and I've done a number of books that are self-published by the authors. So if you want me to try and get some up on the screen, I do have a few of them to show if you want.
Well, yeah, if you get it quickly. If not, we can talk about it.
Right.
But, okay, this is just having such a treat here. You're seeing one of my favorite artists in terms of a special kind of artwork she does. So it's mostly drawings you do. Is that correct?
Yes, it illustrates the. It's not working.
Okay, if you can't, don't knock yourself out on it.
Right.
But when you do the drawing, then where's the color come into play? For example, an illustration of a book.
Well, I'm doing some art. I don't know if you can see this here.
We can, yeah, great.
Okay. For a book on, it's not a children's book. It's for a woman who does like home organization and things.
Sure.
So I do, let me see if I have the sketches here. I do pencil sketches. And I do, this is a color sketch. I took the pencil sketch, which was just a line drawing.
Right. And
colored it in with colored pencil. And then I draw, I don't know if on this one, some of them are painted in, some of them are still drawings. I draw this on illustration board and I paint in with acrylic paints, which are watered down like watercolors.
Talk a little bit, I'm loving looking at your office there. In the background, I see a lot of colored stuff. Right. Yeah. What do I see in the background? You don't have to show each one, but just talk about what's in the background, what makes you wall.
I think that's the poster for HMS Pinafore. My husband sings with
right.
Bucks County Gilbert and Sullivan Society. So I've done a lot of Gilbert and Sullivan illustrations.
By the way, yeah, that's I recall always seeing them before an upcoming show. So the advantage. So that's how your husband gets cast. He brings along the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he's definitely in there.
No, but I'm saying he has no talent, but he has an illustrator, so
Yeah.
if you want the program, you want illustrations, you
Right.
cast me. So
Right.
that's
Right.
secret to his success, right?
Well, he actually sings very well, so they love having him.
Is it too? By the way, remind me, or seriously, connect us at some point in time. I'd love to do a show on, because I can now do it via Zoom, on his society. So he's still active in it?
The Bucks County Gilbert and
Yeah.
Sullivan Society. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Tell him about it. I'd love to do a show on it. That'd be
Okay.
fun.
Okay.
Okay. And we'll see if he mentions you, but that's it works both ways. So you do now talk a little bit about books now. If somebody has an idea, they can come to you and you'll speak to them about illustrating the book.
Yes, I get inquiries a lot, but I'm happy to talk to people. It's quite a process to do a book. It can take 4 to 6 months to illustrate a children's book. I'll grab one that's over here. I know.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Since I'm not that good at the screen sharing.
Okay,
This
that's
is
great.
probably-
Yeah, this is great. Now, have you ever written a children's book or?
I am writing one, but I haven't finished it yet. Yeah, I want to do my own. But this is one of the authors that I work with, Krista Smith. And A Grand Slam Birthday is a nice book for girls or boys. It's about a girl who's kind of a tomboy and likes to play baseball. She goes to her cousin's birthday party, and it's a very dressy, like a dance party, but she helps a baseball game to break out in the middle of the birthday party. So she gets to play baseball and her cousin gets to dance too.
Now, how many pages is this approximately?
It's about 34 pages.
Okay, so you then had to come up with about 34 illustrations or
Yes.
whatever.
Right. Mhm.
And on the illustrations, did you come up with the idea or did she come up with the idea or it's a combination?
She pretty much lets me come up with the ideas. I'm looking for something here.
I love it. Yeah.
There's the dance party. Everybody's kind of not knowing what to do at first. And she opens up the present, which is a piñata.
I love it.
Piñata. And after they hit the piñata, then a baseball game breaks out. So, but yes, Krista pretty much leaves it up to me. She writes the words and I design the book and get the illustrations done. And I even take it through to the printing process because these are self-published on Kindle Direct Publishing.
Right. And so can you just share, and we'll get you back on when you have the book finished. Can you share the idea for your book or is that hush hush?
Oh, I'd rather not.
Okay.
Can I mention something else though?
Please. Yeah.
All right. My son and I collaborated on a cartoon book just now. We just have the proof now. I don't know. That's probably backwards.
No,
It's
yeah,
called
no, I can read it.
Zeitgeist Meetup.
Yeah.
So Tom, my son, works at NYU in New York City, but he does comedy on the side and stand up and improv and stuff. So he has come up with a whole bunch of cartoon ideas and I drew them. And we are just getting the proofs of this book here. So it's going to be available probably within the month or so. And I'll put it on my Etsy shop probably.
Okay. Well, let me know too, or, maybe we'll get him
Sure.
on a show or something. Just
Okay.
what a cool idea though. So
Yeah.
but even for him, what a great idea to market himself, that he has jokes, but you can read them or see them.
Right.
Very exciting stuff. So Pat, I want to let you go in just a second, but I want to ask you to do two things. One, if you, again, I'll give contact information. If people want to reach you, best bet is to do what?
My email, which is achillesportfolio@gmail.com. And that's on my website, which is achillesportfolio.com. That's how they can reach me.
And you mentioned, very exciting, you mentioned there's also an invite. If they want to get your blog, they can sign up there as well.
Yes, you can sign up for my blog. And I think I have links to my Etsy shop where some of my Christmas cards and Eagle Scout cards. My son's an Eagle Scout too, so I have cards for that. And I'll be putting up more Christmas and holiday cards soon.
Okay, and to find that, what's the best bet?
Etsy.com/Achilles Portfolio.
Okay, great. And the second thing I'll ask you to do is you've given me 27 ideas for other shows. So when, in all seriousness, first of all, I love comedians. And so when your son, finish that book, tell him I'll make him a star. We'll get him on a show.
Okay.
And I definitely am interested down the road seriously about interviewing your husband on Gilbert and Sullivan.
Okay.
That'd be a great show. But Pat, this was fantastic, and thanks for the laughs. I just, I just love your stuff. I've always loved it, and showing it was a special treat. So I thank you very much. And hopefully next time I'm in Bucks County, which I don't know when it'll be, but sometime hopefully I'll even get to see you again in person after 20 years, or it's probably longer than 20 years, right? 30
It
years,
might
whatever.
be.
But
Well,
isn't that,
Blaine,
yeah.
this has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. It's been a delight, and I know it'll get me all sorts of publicity too, which I appreciate.
Well, like I said, yeah, as you know, I'll send it out and put it out there. And the more people you put out there, but just kind of an in-depth interview with one of my favorite, or is my favorite cartoonist, and to show her stuff, such a treat, Pat. So thanks an awful lot. Speak to you soon.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, you be well.
All
Okay,
right.
as Pat fades from the studio, we'll bring in our other guest, and there she is, Jen. Thanks for being with us. And before I introduce you, Jen, let me just mention to people that you're listening or watching the Blaine's World podcast. We're heard each couple times a week, sometimes on Spotify, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, you name it, you can find this. And it's next my pleasure to introduce my second guest today. And she is Jen Alley, who's a money and business coach. Before I give you your introduction, Jen, you can wave to all your fans and friends watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you might be watching. Okay, and that's Jen. And Jen is a dedicated money and business coach who supports creative, holistic entrepreneurs to achieve thriving businesses. She teaches prosperity, mindset, marketing. I love that concept. Sales and financial tools in ways that are soul-aligned, practical, intuitive, and fun. She's also given a TED Talk, which we'll talk about, harness creativity as your greatest business asset. And it was among recently among the top 10% of TED Talks chosen for TED.com. Pretty cool. And we'll talk about the TED Talk in a second, Jen. Let me ask you this question. You, same thing I asked our first guest, you grew up where?
In Tennessee.
Okay, and growing up in Tennessee, not far from where I am in North Carolina, did you always know you wanted to be this prosperity coach? No, what do you want to be as a kid?
Madonna, pretty much.
Well, so does that mean you're going to just sing for us a little bit?
No, not at all.
Or a dancer? No? So you gave that up. What made you give up your entertaining career?
No, I never had one. I fell into this because I learned a lot the hard way and decided not to do that anymore, and decided that other people didn't have to do it that way either.
We'll talk about learning by the hard way. How so?
Yeah, so I started my first business in 2003 after I became a life coach, and I ended up going into lots of debt because I didn't know what I was doing in business, and I didn't really track my numbers and my money, and I just dove into business, and I went into a lot of debt, and I was clueless, and so I ended up filing bankruptcy. So I ended up going back to teaching and got a job for a while before I started my next businesses.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because it's probably true with a lot of folks that they have no idea what they're doing. And then I guess they failed their first time. What did you learn from the failure?
I learned to respect money, marketing, sales, and business in general. And I learned that I needed to have a different way of looking at business so I can align with it and embrace it so that I can dive into it. And I also had a bunch of mentors over the years who I learned a ton from.
And talk a little bit about that concept, because I think you're giving excellent advice in terms of getting a mentor and seeking out a mentor. Is that something you actually sought out, or you found them, or how do you go about finding a mentor?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's somebody you resonate with, that you trust, that speaks your language, that you vibe with, basically. And who, I think the most important part with finding a mentor or coach is really finding somebody who will meet you where you are and will respect and honor your gifts and help you leverage those. And you know, a lot of times people have a system or something, and I don't think that works for most people. So I really think it's important to have somebody who can meet you where you are.
By the way, if you care to give a shout out, or if you want to mention any particular mentor, feel free to do so, because that's something that I guess you have to be lucky to find the right person. And if you do, does that happen more than once, or do you work with different mentors?
I've had so many mentors throughout the last 20 years, I can't even begin to list them.
Okay. Are you still in touch with them?
Yeah, some of them.
Okay. because I think that's a key point. A lot of people forget, you work with somebody and then you forget that person or you don't keep in touch with them. So I think it's helpful if you still touch base with them or,
Yeah,
let
and
them know.
I also keep track of my old clients too and interact with them on social media and share resources with them and all that stuff. I think it's important to keep that going.
It's funny you say that because I find so few businesses do that, that you do business with them and then they wonder, Jen, I'll have you talk about this in a second, that you're in touch with them for years and then they wonder why you go to somebody else. I don't know about you, but that's certainly me, that if I don't hear from somebody for a couple of years, they fall by the wayside. And so I like them contacting me on a regular basis. But talk about how you do that without being, I guess, obnoxious, in terms of
Well, I'm not sure that's the case.
no.
But for example, today I saw a reel on Instagram that had a audio thing for artists. And so I sent it to a client who's an artist because I could see her using that audio for another reel or video on
Right.
Instagram. Yeah, so things like that, just touching base. And I had a conversation with a former client from years ago this month or last month, because I went to New York City in September and she was going to go soon. So we just, swapped stories and resources and chatted for a while and just caught up a little bit. It was great.
And one of the things you're talking about, which I think is excellent advice for anybody watching or listening to this, is the fact that keeping in touch with folks, you don't always have to be selling them, but you're trying to just help them,
Or just connect. Yeah.
Right. But I think the example you gave was an excellent one. The idea that if you saw something that helped somebody else and you shared it with them, what a nice way, and so what I tend to believe is that these folks are no longer your clients per se, but they become your friends, that they become people you like to hang out with or associate with. And that's kind of really cool. So that's kind of good advice. Talk about the advice you give and your background. So where did you get your training to then become a coach?
I initially did a coach's training with Martha Beck, who's a really well-known author, in 2003. And then I had mentors in California. He ran a company called Thrive Academy. And then I had a bunch of different other mentors over the years. And I had a few here as well, in Asheville. And I really, for me, mentors can come in lots of forms, and it can come as a coach, as a business consultant, as a mentor in your exact field. Yeah, so I've had lots of different kinds of mentors over the years, and just colleagues too, who I depend on and connect with regularly.
Now, do you also mentor other folks?
I'm a coach, so that's
Well, okay,
I'm referring to that as mentoring as well. Yeah.
Good point. Well, talk about
Yeah.
then how you then actually got into coaching. So you got some training, got some background. What made you want to become a coach?
I had met a coach in an airport in Costa Rica. I was living in Honduras at the time, teaching English. And I had never heard of life coaching before. This was in 2003. And I asked her what she did. We were actually stuck in line together in an airport and nobody else was around. And we were like, what's going on? Like, the Delta office isn't open. It's like 3 p.m. What's going on? So we ended up chatting for a while, and she was a life coach. And I said, what is that? And she said, she helps make people's dreams come true. And I was like, that's a job. Sign me up. And I was a teacher at the time. I was teaching English in Central America for a year there. And I was like, it sounds like, and I learned more about it. And I was like, coaching sounds like the best part of teaching concentrated, without the bureaucracy, without a pay cap.
And what a great concept you threw out there, helping people dreams come true. What's wrong with that? And what I like about it too, Jen, as you described it, it's what's cool about it. It's, I guess, individualized for everybody. So everybody has a different dream. How do you help people discover their dream?
Yeah, I call it visioning, and I do a process at the beginning of the relationship where I help them. I do different guided visualizations. I send them resources for that kind of stuff, and I help them get in touch with the part of themselves that is becoming that new version of themselves. I'm really getting clear on what they want their daily life to look like, because a lot of times people have a dream or a vision, but they don't actually think about what that means for their life on a daily basis. So they may create something they don't actually want. And so I help them get in touch with it on a really deep level so that they're able to really get in touch with how it feels to be in that next level of their life. And and once they tap into that and they can see what it looks like and taste it, so to speak. And then we work backwards to help them get there. So we start, where they are now and moving toward that vision.
Now, is this something that continues beyond just an initial meeting, or does it continue over several years or almost a lifetime?
Well, it's up to them, but my relationship with them for the coaching starts with usually a 6 to 12 month coaching agreement or program, so that they can have that solid support ongoing to keep momentum and get things going and have accountability and support and resources along the way.
I guess one of the nice things with working with Jen Alley or another coach as well, it almost becomes what Zig Ziglar used to call a checkup from the neck up, so that once you get started, it's helpful sometimes, and entrepreneurs don't often have this, to have somebody, it's like almost your own individualized board of directors. I see you as kind of being that you can give people that feedback that they ordinarily wouldn't have access to.
Yeah, I mean, they're the head of the board of directors still, because
Right.
it's their vision and their business. But I'm definitely a guide. If you think about a guide, like a tour guide or something like that, like I've been here, done that, and I've had a lot of businesses and I've helped a lot of people. So, they're in new territory a lot of times. And even if they've been in business for a while, they may be in new territory about where their business is going. So I help people at two levels. One is when they're starting out a business and they're getting momentum, they need to have support to get that going. And the other, and to get confidence in all kinds of things and systems in place. And then the other one is when they've hit a plateau and they're burnt out in their business and they want to optimize their business and create more leverage so that they can create more of a legacy without overworking and burning out.
How about helping people decide that it's time to actually get out of their business, and do you sometimes work with people like that they've done the
Yeah, I
successful
haven't
business?
actually, but I myself got out of a business during COVID. In 2020, I completed a jewelry business that I had for 9 years. So I learned a lot about how to appraise and sell a business and how to find a buyer, how to work with a broker. I learned a lot about that. So yeah, I love the idea of supporting people to get out of business. I've helped people move toward and create retirement, not as a financial advisor, but like just helping them move toward that goal. I've helped people create career changes, like from nurses who want to do more creative work or do a consulting or freelance, for example. Yeah.
Do you help some people decide that, or come to a decision that, maybe it is time to not run the business anymore? Like you were saying, looking at numbers, that, hey, you can do something, and sometimes it's maybe time to do something else or not get into something. How about not getting into something? Do you ever have people come up to with what they say is a great idea and they want to do this, and then as they go through the process with you, they decide that maybe it's not such a great idea?
I haven't had that actually. I think that by the time people come to me, they're very committed to what they're doing and what they're up to. And they're in it enough to know that that's what they want. Yeah, and when I talk to people who have ideas for businesses, I help them get a sense of the reality check of it, because I think it's always more work and more energy and focus and time than people think it's going to be. So I don't gloss over that.
Talk also about what you call, and I love the terminology, the helping people with creative and holistic entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
And that's kind of a great mouthful, but what exactly is that?
Yeah, so creatives are two different types of entrepreneurs that I love working with. And there's like, these are kinds of businesses that I've had over the years. So the creative type can be artist, maker, a writer, a videographer, designer, lots of things there. And then the holistic is like massage therapist, astrologer, acupuncturist, wellness consultant, and yoga teacher, that kind of stuff, spa owner. And those, sometimes people have more than one of those things going on too. They'll have one in each of those categories, or a couple here, a couple there. So yeah, so basically, handmade or creative products, and then services that are supporting people in their healing and transformational processes.
And talk about the latter, because one of the cool things about Asheville certainly is there are a lot of people who are in these fields, yoga experts and,
All of
massage
those.
practitioners,
Yeah, all of those.
you name it.
And art.
Right. Well, art too. Talk about that in terms of how do you help them just make themselves unique from everybody else out in their field, because Asheville certainly being a good example. I think it's like the yoga capital of the world. You know, there might be a lot of yoga practitioners.
Yeah.
How do you help somebody stand out from the competition?
Yeah, so it's really, they already have unique qualities and backgrounds and combinations of skills and stuff. So it's a matter of helping them see that and see where in the marketplace there's a unique place for them. And then finding the niche for the specific group of people that they help and will help the most. So it's like kind of like a mix and match thing, you know? And I found that people who find, like, a lot of times, like, people will come into something and it's like, okay, this is like, it's the perfect thing. Like for me as a business coach, I'm a business coach and a money coach for the biggest lessons I've learned in those areas for people in the two categories of businesses that I know the most about and I help the most about. So it's like very unique, you know, it's not like, not many people do what I do. And it's the same for everybody else. Like, why do they do what they do? And what is it about them what is their why really, you know, too? And then who are they wanting to give to through their work?
And what I think is helpful to what you're doing with folks is helping them realize that they have to come up, like I said, the why or what makes them unique or different than anybody else. Because a lot of times I find that people don't know that, you know, they just kind of, they like painting or drawing or artwork. Like our first guest, you'll hear the show when you get the tape, was a cartoonist, but she's a very unique cartoonist. You know, she's unlike anybody else. So I guess that's what you're trying to help people get to. You mentioned the why. Explain that a little bit more in terms of business working with you to get to the why.
Yeah, so they're really coming from why they're doing it, because really oftentimes that's where the uniqueness is, like their story of why they're doing it, you know, why they're doing what they're doing exactly, you know, because finding out their bigger why and why they're doing the exact thing they're doing, nobody else is doing it the way they're doing it. So it's really just defining that and figuring it out, and then figuring out who wants that work and then finding them and figuring out how to market from there.
I like what you do, because what I think makes you kind of cool and unique is the fact, like I said, there are two aspects of this. So it has to do with the business, but also it has to do with the money too. And you should be in business. You want to make money at some point in time. You know, I assume we have a hobby, a very expensive hobby. So that's where, talk a little bit how you work with people in terms of the financial aspect of what they do.
Yeah, so a lot of it is about the mindset and the habits around money. So really, so for example, I'm teaching a money program right now, and one of my people in my money program is talking about how he doesn't see himself as a business person because he sees himself as a creative. And so I help people bridge the gap. Like, so they may not identify, because, you know, in the book Atomic Habits, James Clear talks about how people don't change their habits when they identify with something so strongly that they won't change. So you have to really look at your identity and be willing to change your identity to be willing to change and make change. So for people who are creative and holistic, that's really common that they don't, or we don't want to, which is not true for me anymore, obviously, that they don't want to, like, you know, do business or do marketing or do sales or deal with money as much as they would benefit them. So I help them reframe their way they look at money, business, sales, and marketing, so they can see that marketing is simply education and visibility, and sales is simply connection and service, and money is a tool for freedom and generosity. And so these are all things that, you know, when they have this sort of tweak in their brain, it's like, oh, it's not evil, it's just what it is, you know. And another thing that's common is that people have a fear of making a lot of money because they're afraid they'll become greedy. And one of my favorite quotes, which comes from a few different people, so I won't even attribute it to anybody right now, because it's basically that the more money you have, the more you become, the more of yourself you become. Making more money only makes you more of who you already are.
What you're saying is so spot on, Jen, because I have so many folks come to me when I'm doing work for SCORE or AB Tech, whatever, and almost the first words out of their mouth are, I'm not good at marketing, or I hate marketing, you know? And like you said, you have to kind of, that's a mindset, and it can actually become a fun kind of thing, but not if you go into it with a poor attitude, you know? So
Yeah, absolutely. It's about finding their strengths and their gifts and their proclivities, what they're drawn to in general in marketing. And they're already doing marketing to some degree. They're just not acknowledging it.
Right, right.
So
Right.
it's like, really being able to step into it more in a way that feels empowering.
If somebody works with Jen Alley, what makes working with you unique to, just like we were talking about the artists and other people, what makes working with you different than working with any other coach out there?
I think the biggest thing is I really meet people where they are every single meeting. So wherever they are, whatever's going on, I meet them where they are and I help them take the next steps. I don't try to get them too far ahead of themselves. I don't give them too much information too fast in a way that they can't digest it. So I really feel like that is the bit that works, is like meeting people where they are on the day that we're meeting and supporting them to take the next step. And that adds up quick.
What you're saying reminds me of something I once heard Oprah say, and she had I'm trying to remember it. It was a great line. She said, "Just ask this question: what's next?" And so many people get swamped by, as you said, they're working with a coach or they take a course or whatnot, and they're told you have to do 473 things, which they're not going to do. It's overwhelming. So I think what you just said kind of reminds me of that quote. It just, what do we have to do next? Next step to get you to where you want to go. But that's hard for a lot of people to recognize. And I guess that's where a coach can come into play.
That's where I come into play.
Yeah.
As a coach, for
to-
sure. Because I help people meet them where they are. And then we co-create the next steps and we create, it's very, very practical.
Because again, the problem I see a lot of people have is they're overwhelmed by the next step, or they're overwhelmed. They have 473 steps again, and they don't know which one to take first. All you have to do is one thing.
And they're also oftentimes people are overwhelmed by all the possibilities and they can't decide very easily where to start, and they don't trust themselves. They don't have as much experience as they want. And the marketplace is completely changing all the time. Social media is a different world from last two months ago.
Right.
And so it's like, how do you actually just step into this and is it worth it? How do I make this worth it? How do I trust what I'm doing, where I'm putting my energy? Because people are busy too. So they want to make sure what they're doing is worthwhile. So I help them make decisions around that as well.
Talk about the best kind of clients you work with, or give me some examples of folks you've worked with and kind of made a difference in their lives.
Yeah. So one client who has a service-based practice, so she went from selling individual sessions over the year, so selling hundreds of sessions per year, to selling packages of 24 sessions. And she's had more than one of her best months yet.
Yeah.
And after years of business, and she's doing way less admin, making way more impact, way less, basically way more leverage for her time, and giving way more value to people with deeper work that she really enjoys.
For some reason, you may have been the person who told me that, but the example is a great one, and certainly folks should think about it, that to get people to sign up for sessions, like you said, so rather than just see you one time, you have to see, you said even 6 to 12 months, commitment, you have it so you don't have to sell each time starting from scratch. So that's food for thought for any entrepreneur, that if you can package, guess what you have, and spread out over a period of time, that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, and it's also about, figuring out in general first, like where you can create the most value in people's lives. And is it in one session or is it in a long-term relationship, Yeah.
And your example, I think is a very good one, that people want to work with you. You're asking them to make at least a commitment of 6 months. Is that the initial commitment?
Sometimes I'll do a little less than that, but not often, because it really takes time to get things moving.
Talk about, that's one example. Talk about maybe one other example of a successful client you worked with.
Yeah, another client is an artist in the local market here in Asheville area, and they basically upgraded their studio, created new streams of income working together, and this was in a 6-month period. And they were able to up their game in social media, get on new platforms, and create some momentum in their business, and to stop doing the work that they weren't enjoying as much and just to do their creative work. So major changes.
I think that's kind of a cool recommendation, that I guess that's where you help people to do stuff you enjoy doing, because if you enjoy doing it, it's going to be a lot more fun than if you don't enjoy doing it.
Absolutely. And that's what I love. I really believe in creative and holistic entrepreneurs as people who are really bringing a lot of value to the world. They're coming from their hearts. And that's why I work with them. And I know how to help them the best too. So.
And talk about that concept then, we're just kind of alluding to it, the idea of having fun. Is it possible? And you being, again, I think a good example that you've gone and we had businesses that weren't successful. I guess when they weren't successful, they weren't fun. Is that kind of a correlation?
Well, they were fun for a while, but then
but when they were losing money or
but then it was really
successful.
stressful and it wasn't worth it, so I went back to getting a job. This was like 15, 20 years ago. Yeah.
It must be kind of exciting for you when you work with somebody who the light bulb lights, I guess, and they actually smile and have fun with what they're doing. Does that sometimes happen?
They get excited, yeah, because they get clear and they feel confident and they feel like they can move forward and they know what's next and they feel like it's going to happen. A lot of times people, when they come to me, they're stressed out because they don't fully trust the process of business and how things are going to unfold and what to do, and they're confused and overwhelmed, and they need some more support and accountability to make it actually happen. And so once they hire me, a lot of times they feel like, okay, like feel relief because they're like, okay, like this is happening now. I have a container, I have a structure, I have support, I have more expertise. They have what they need to actually step forward and to keep going and to not lose momentum, to keep going, because there's that scheduled call every week or two where it's okay, I have to show up for that call and I have to, do the things I'm going to do. So momentum happens.
Is that how it works when somebody works with you? And like what you just said there, they have to at least keep in touch with you or they can't disappear for a month or two?
Well, we have an agreement where we're meeting every week or two, generally. Yeah, depending on the program they're in. So they'll meet every week or two so that sometimes when I have repeat clients or people who keep going for sort of like ongoing support after an initial period, we'll meet for once a month. But that's the minimum because otherwise you just spend all the time catching up. But usually a lot of times I have clients who meet weekly or every 2 weeks so they can keep momentum going.
And talk, Jen, if you would, about, I mentioned the introduction, you did a TED Talk, and it was relatively successful. This was before COVID. Yeah, I guess you did the talk.
Just before. Mm-hmm.
So talk about two parts of that. One, what gave the idea to want to give a TED Talk?
Well, I always loved them, and it was one of my bucket list things to be able to do one. Yeah.
So you did this, and what was the topic?
It's called Harness Creativity as Your Greatest Business Asset. So it's really about really honoring your creativity and being willing to use creativity as a business asset. So seeing business as a creative process and being willing to step into business as a creative by leveraging your creativity in business, and also looking at business in different ways, just like the reframes I gave earlier, so that you can be successful creative in business.
Now, if folks want to see this YouTube talk, is it on YouTube or can they find it?
It's on TED's YouTube channel. It's on TED.com, and it's also on my website, which is probably the easiest place to find it, in my blog, or anywhere you see a TED Talk image on my website, you can click it.
Okay, and if you would give your website, please.
Yeah, it's Jen Ailey Coaching, JENALY coaching.com.
Okay, so they can get the TED Talk, they can see that. But also you mentioned you have a blog there as well?
Yeah, there's a blog and there's free gifts. There's a 3-part money makeover kit. So if you want to have a money makeover, for your mind, there's a great kit there you can get. And there's even more free stuff on there now too. So really great resources for people.
And talk about the blog, if you would. So how often does that come out?
I blog probably twice a week right now, actually. Yeah. Okay.
How important is blogging to a business?
It depends on your business strategy. For me, one of my business strategies is doing good search engine optimization, so SEO, and to do a good blog once or twice a week, to put the right keywords in there and to optimize it for SEO is a really great part of strategy for those who want to just get, people from your website.
And talk about just a bit of advice for some people who might be scared by the concept, and people tell me that, write a blog, they don't want to do it. But talk about, and I'll give an example as you talk about it, about how long the blog has to be. You know, people think you have to write 1,000 words, you know, every day or something. How long are your blogs?
So I'll just speak to blogs in general. Like
Right.
for good SEO, they say you need at least 300 words.
Right.
That's just a basic parameter.
Yeah, I'll give you I think one of my favorite bloggers is Seth Godin, you know, and his blogs are sometimes 23 words. You know, it's just incredible, but he puts out every day and they're good stuff. So you mentioned 300 words would be great, but the point I'm trying to make is I think it's important if anybody's watching or listening, just start doing it as opposed to worrying about has to be the perfect blog or, you know, the perfect length. Just have to make a commitment to try it.
The
At some
other
point in
thing
time.
I really like to do is to cross-pollinate my different things. So I might put up an Instagram post and then turn that into a blog and then put it on my Facebook group. And then, you know, I'll put it in my email list. So I'll use the same content, different places, and just tweak it a little bit for the different, you know, formats and audiences.
How does somebody get smarter about all that stuff?
Hire me.
Okay, no, but it's a good answer.
Also,
Stupid question, great
I would
answer.
say first, I would say look at your mentors.
Right.
What are people doing? Model that.
And I guess the mentors who are successful and it's working.
Yeah,
But that's
and just not even mentors, but just people you look up to on social media.
yeah. But back to what you mentioned that so this is another skill, but again, you're raising another good recommendation. If you don't have skill in all areas, nothing wrong also with going out and getting help in some areas, you know, because
Absolutely.
again,
Yeah,
you mentioned you as an example or an entrepreneur has to become all of a sudden an expert in 47 things simultaneously, but you don't have to do it all yourself. You know, if it's beyond you, hire Jen Alley or hire, you know, anybody else have
yeah.
expertise.
I'm always hiring expertise myself too. I hired a marketing person last year. I hired a social media manager this year. I have a virtual assistant who knows more than me about a lot of things. You know, so I think it's really important to get support when you can. Because there's a billion hats you can wear, and it's always, you know, you can't be an expert in every single thing.
And raising one other excellent advice too, bit of advice that you don't have to do it all yourself again too. And sometimes if you, God forbid, you pay, you know, somebody else do it, it frees you up to do stuff you enjoy or can be more profitable for you.
Absolutely.
Jen Alley, again, if folks want to get in touch with you, you mentioned the website. Repeat it once again with the spelling, and we'll talk about what they can find at the website.
Yeah, so it's JENALY coaching.com, and you can get the Money Makeover Kit there. And if you go to learn, and you can see the upcoming events and digital courses, and there's some free ones on there. There's some paid ones on there. So there's lots of content there.
Okay, you teach also some digital courses as well?
Yeah, I have some
Okay.
recordings on my website, yeah.
Okay, super. So Jen Alley, I'd like to thank you for being my guest. The second half hour on the Plains World podcast.
My
I'd also like
pleasure.
to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti, and hopefully maybe one of these days we'll actually get to see you in person.
Love it.
Jen,
Thanks, Blaine.
okay, thanks again. Stay with me in just a second.